Hey, want to see something pretty trippy? Lately, I've taken a bit of a deep dive into generative adversarial networks, and in particular, learning how to train convolutional neural networks. So, in other words, how to generate images using training data. And in this case, what I've done is I've trained on a bunch of bark and tree textures that I took myself. I've been on this journey of trying to figure out how to leverage this technology in a manner that is ethical. Because unfortunately, lately, the technology has been coupled with theft as if they were both intertwined, which could not be further from the truth. Unfortunately, it is only true because that's how the technology has been implemented. But to me, using technology ethically is very important. It's pretty fascinating that one of the things I've realized and learned through the process is how fast this stuff is. Once you have the neural network trained, it's basically real time. So here you can see I'm just drawing. I'm giving it a prompt via a drawing, and it's taking the training data and generating something that resembles the training data, but of course it's fairly novel because there's nothing that actually looks like this in my training data. However, if I were to import my training data specifically, I'd be able to generate these exact images. So first of all, as you can see, it's a very small data set. And if I import any of these, right, it will immediately generate this. Now I can of course paint over it and modify it and interfere with the interpretation because I'm changing the actual source, the source data. And so clearly what we're seeing here is that in order for this to work, the neural network has to store all of this information in its layers as a form of a kind of abstracted storage, relationships of pixel data stored across various layers, resulting in something around 6 million parameters, which is fairly small. It's really small because these are only 256 by 256 images. I was trying to keep the scope small so that I could really go through these training processes, iterate through them, and figure out exactly how to train a neural network. But pretty trippy, right? Here you can actually see how, as I interfere with the prompt, every subtle little change, if I make a really big brush, if I make a tiny brush, the relationship between the brush size and the directionality of the mark making is all having a unique effect on the end result. And ultimately what's remaining here is for me to make the result more and more meaningful and more believable by simply giving it more and more training data. But without the training data, it's nothing. And it just goes to show that this technology is so powerful, and we should really protect property rights and allow people to use the technology in an ethical way and use it as a source of empowerment rather than as a source of disempowerment. But ultimately, that's going to depend on how our legislators legislate on this technology. I was able to do this on a fairly average computer. In order to train this, it takes 5 minutes, believe it or not. It's incredibly fast because my data set is so small. So I could change the data set, train it again, wait 5 minutes, and I'd be doing this, what you're seeing me do here, with a completely different data set. So this idea that you need to have like this giant power grid system in order to power this is not true. It's only true if the method by which you train is to subsume the entire world's content library published online. In other words, if you take the lazy approach of not really properly strategizing a training approach, properly generating the content, then yeah, if you want to take the approach of theft, then yeah, you need a lot of power to do that because you're avoiding all the manpower that would be involved in carefully pairing data and carefully generating data for training. But that means that we're robbing all of humanity, not only of what they've already produced, but of the opportunity to produce, of the opportunity to contribute and to make something. And so anyway, I'll be continuing making posts about this. Feel free to follow me if you'd like to see where this is headed. It's obviously still very crude and rudimentary, but as you can see, it's showing a lot of promise. Thanks for watching.